I would like to call this June meeting of the Quorum Court to order and welcome everyone in attendance. Tonight, the prayer and the pledge is going to be handled by J.P. Robert Dennis.
Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you at this time. We just thank you and we praise you. And just ask your blessings on this county. Pray that you bless our judge, the leaders and our county, the department heads, and all the associates. Pray that you just keep them safe in their jobs. Pray that you bless them and help them. And these things we ask and pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I got a message today from Daniel Balls. He has been held up, or he was held up in Los Angeles on a plane, and he doesn't think he'll make it, so I wanted to let everyone know that. Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Here. Rick Cochran. Here. Robert Dennis. Here. Lisa Ecke. Here. John Furman. Here. Ann Harbison. Here. Sharon Lloyd. Here. Tom Lundstrom. Here. Eva Madison. Here. Sue Madison. Here. Joel Maxwell. Here. Joe Patterson. Here. Butch Pond. Here. Bill Ussery. Here.
There is a quorum present. Thank you. Next thing we have before us is the adoption of the agenda. I know of one addition to the agenda, and I'm going to ask Butch Pond if he will look at this for me. J.P. Pond?
We have a resolution to add to the agenda.
To recognize a resolution to recognize the Weaver family as Farm Family of the Year. I might ask also if this could be slightly amended to have Ms. J.P. Ann Harbison be a co-sponsor with me on this resolution.
Do we need to have a motion to add her to the as a co-sponsor? Steve?
Judge, I believe that'd be appropriate when it's read.
Okay.
Okay. Hang on. Yes, J.P. Harbison.
The reason I would like to have my name added to it is that these people live in my J.P. district. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, J.P. Madison.
It's listed as 11.1. I think for their sake, they probably don't want it to be last. So I would ask that they be put somewhere higher up on the agenda so that they can go home and enjoy their evening. So I don't know if J.P. Pond would accept that as a friendly amendment to maybe put it before the finance report, but that's what I would recommend.
Certainly would.
We actually have that placed right after the minutes. So if y'all approve that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay. Now, where is our resolution? Are we going to read that resolution now?
Judge, I think you wanted to do approval of the minutes.
Okay. Okay, now this is a change in the minutes. Do I have a motion to make the change? I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. On the agenda, do I have a motion to? Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion. I don't know where the I don't have my resolution.
I've got it.
Do you have it, Steve? You want Steve to read this, Butch?
Do we not want to do approval of the minutes, of last month's minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meetings? Well, actually, it will be the May 5th special meeting and May the 21st regular meeting. And I'll need, and are there any, do I have a motion to accept these? And a second? Second. Are there any corrections, deletion, or additions? Yes, please.
Since we last discussed the minutes issue and I've become more aware of the Robert's Rules of Order procedure regarding minutes, I wanted to make a brief statement because I'm going to actually be voting against both of any motion to approve both sets of minutes. When I looked at my agenda packet, we had 80 pages, single-space pages of minutes in our packet tonight. We had 30 pages of minutes from the special meeting held on May 5th, and we had 38 pages of minutes from the May 21st meeting. I did not have time, the way my week has gone, to actually review those with any care. And given that I was the speaker for most of the time in the May 5th meeting, it was of great importance to me that they be right. And I simply just couldn't do it because of the volume. It also troubles me that we have committee minutes that the committees are never approving. So I just wanted to read from Robert's Rules of Order what it says. It says that the minutes should contain mainly a record of what was done at the meeting, not what was said by the members. And I think that the bulk of our minutes discuss what was said, particularly the May 5th minutes. And so I don't know how many of us are really wading through all these minutes. I think I'm finding it irresponsible of myself to vote to approve minutes when I haven't read them. So until our minutes comply with Robert's Rules of Order and we sort of straighten out how we're going to handle that, I'm going to have to vote against the motion. Thank you, Madam Judge.
Thank you. So, yes, J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I'd like to ask our attorney if the minutes, what is the significance of the minutes as far as legality? Are they used in a court proceeding if necessary, or?
May I engage
Yes,
in a
please.
colloquy with J.P. Sue Madison?
Yes.
Yes, Justice Madison. That, if necessary, this becomes the official record of this court, and that's the reason you vote on the minutes, is to say, yes, we acknowledge that this is what we did, and as J.P. Eva Madison said, when you are, these minutes say what you said at a particular meeting, that becomes the official record, and would still have to be introduced in evidence by the rules of evidence. But yes, it would be what we lawyers call prima facie evidence of what happened in any given meeting for which the minutes are recorded.
Well, we have oral recordings, audio recordings of all our meetings. Why would a court not look to something that was obviously more accurate?
Justice Madison, that you probably have to ask the lawyer who might want to introduce. There may be a tactical decision in a court proceeding about whether to introduce the written record or the recording. For example, I don't know that it profits me a whole lot, or you, or the court, for me to talk about the permutations of why someone would choose to introduce one record over the other. However, I think that it's entirely possible that you would have someone wanting the most accurate record ask for the digital recording and give that to the court.
Well, I must admit I didn't read the minutes this time either. I have in the past usually read the minutes, but it was a lot to read. Let me think about this a minute. Thank you, Madam Judge.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? Anyone else wants to comment on the minutes? So, are we ready to? Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
No.
Eva Madison,
No.
Sue Madison,
Abstain.
Joel Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson,
No.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke, John Furman,
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Do we pass?
9 to 5. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Have you got the resolution? We're going to ask the attorney now to read the resolution.
I would like, if we're ready to read the resolution, I'd like to read it myself if I
Oh,
could.
okay, very good, thank
Very
you.
good. Be it resolved by the Quorum Court of Washington County of Washington, by the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled, a resolution in honor of the Weaver family. Whereas the Michael and Christy Weaver family have owned and operated a farm in Washington County for many years, and whereas Michael and Christy Weaver both grew up on farms in Arkansas and Oklahoma. Whereas the Weaver family has been milking and farming for 37 years, and whereas Michael Weaver has been milking and farming full-time for 10 years, has been raising livestock for 22 years. Whereas the farming operation of the Weaver family has, with hard work, met with great success. And whereas the Weaver family has been named the Washington County Farm Family of the Year for 2015. Now therefore be it resolved by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, that Michael and Christy Weaver and their son, Levi, are hereby honored and congratulated by the Washington County Quorum Court. And I was looking to see if Michael's mother had come also. She's an important, great part of their operation. Helped to make it possible. And I wanted to just kind of wanted to say I had another reason for asking Ann Harbison to be co-sponsor on this, other than that being in her district. She's also another farmer on the court, and Ann's probably going to want to say a few things, but I wanted to say a little bit about some of the things it takes to, and this is just a very small list. There are many things it takes to make a successful farm. And some of those are determination and environmental sustainability. An important thing you have to look at. Animal welfare is very important. One of mine that I've done an awful lot of, I have to do a lot of praying. I'm not going to make my list any longer. These are some of the ingredients in the recipe for a successful farm. And we need to recognize and realize how important to our environment and a lot of other things that the agri-acres, how important that is to help keep our environment clean and desirable as it is. Every year we lose agri-acres in northwest Arkansas, and every year our water quality issue becomes a little bit more shaky. I don't know. I'll say that on these ingredients and many others that I listed, and reading the article in the paper about this family, there was a statement made about the many things that they have to consider, and they have to get them right. If they make a mistake on one of those issues, it's like the man said, there goes the whole shebang. And as far as I'm concerned, in my book, that was quote of the year for the Northwest Arkansas Times. I appreciate it. Ann, did you have something you...
Well, yes, I want to congratulate the Weaver family, and you're dedicated to agriculture. You're a part of the backbone of the economy of Arkansas. It's agriculture. I don't know anything. A dairy farm is hard work, but yet we have to have that milk, and there are fewer and fewer people willing to do that, and you're to be congratulated for it. We basically feed the world, and you're definitely a link in that. Thank you for your hard work and your dedication, and congratulations on being Washington County Farm Family of the Year.
And move to pass 11.1.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Any public comments? With no further comments, Carly, would you please call the roll?
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Joel Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Congratulations and yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman,
Yes.
I would like to take the liberty to ask the Weaver family to please stand up and be recognized. And I don't want you folks to feel like you have to stay here for this meeting, so we will not be offended if you excuse yourself. But now, if you would like to make a comment, we would love to hear from you.
I appreciate y'all very much. It's an honor to be here and be invited. It's pretty special. And, we do have a Farm Bureau board meeting tonight. that I'm on, so maybe we can join you again sometime. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. We appreciate you. The next thing we have is our financial report. Rick?
Thank you, Judge.
Sorry. J.P. Cochran.
That's all right. You can call me Rick, you can call me J.B. Cochran, just don't forget to call me for dinner. All right, the first item up, 6.1, is a resolution, although not binding on future quorum courts, it is made to show our intent to financially support the Washington County Regional Ambulance Authority and an expansion in the areas that Springdale Fire Department has been supporting but will no longer support beginning January of 2016. The commitment we're making is for a 5-year period during which Central EMS will be financing a new ambulance, and it'll be purchased and financed, and this will cover that expanded area. I move to pass 6.1. Well, let's have Attorney Zager read the ordinance first.
A resolution expressing the quorum court's intent to commit to the Washington County Regional Ambulance Authority Emergency Medical Response Plan. Whereas the City of Springdale will be discontinuing their emergency medical service response outside of their city limits beginning January 1st, 2016, and whereas the Washington County Regional Ambulance Authority has studied this matter and presented its plan to the quorum court, and whereas said plan includes the addition of 1 ambulance and an additional night crew to provide emergency medical services to the cities of Tawnytown, Elm Springs, North Johnson, and northeastern Washington County at a level that meets the response time standards of the Washington County Regional Ambulance Authority, while continuing the current response times provided by the Springdale Fire Department, and whereas said plan includes the necessary startup costs for 2015 to cover wages for training new employees, the financing of an ambulance and equipment, and the subsidy dollar amount increase necessary for the next 5-year period. Now therefore be it resolved by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, Article 1, the Quorum Court hereby commits to the plan presented by the Northwest Arkansas Regional Ambulance Authority. I think that should be Washington without the N. Washington County Regional Ambulance Authority, and will plan to budget accordingly for the next 5-year period.
Thank you, Mr. Zaga. I would also point out one other thing about this. Some 25, 35 years ago, Washington County voters voted in a 1% sales tax. And one of the things that they promised that they would cover is ambulance service. So this is money that we already receive. It will be a fairly significant bump for the next 5 years when we cover the cost of this ambulance, but it will keep our ambulance service at the level that we are experiencing now, combined between Springdale and Central EMS. And I move to pass 6.1.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comments? Carly, would you please call the roll?
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond,
Yes.
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman,
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
This resolution is adopted. Rick?
The next item up, 6.2, is an ordinance to appropriate money for the expenses we incurred during the investigation of the county bridges. Mr. Zaga, would you please read 6.2?
An ordinance appropriating an additional amount of $4,956 from the general fund to the general services budget for 2015 to fund the investigation of county bridges. Article 1, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $4,956 from the general fund to the special projects line item of the general services budget for 2015.
Justice Madison, Eva, would you like to speak to this one, since you are the sponsor?
Yes, you're recognized.
I would just move that we pass 6.2. I appreciate J.P. Furman's initial designation of a guesstimate of a budget, and this is actually what it cost. So.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Carla, would you call the roll?
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Joe Maxwell, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Ussery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman,
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted. Rick?
The next item, 6.3, is an ordinance appropriating money to fund the training costs during the fourth quarter for Central EMS to prepare to cover the Springdale Fire Department area that they're discontinuing service in next year. The reason the funds are going to the medical dental hospital line, which seems a little odd, is that's where we pay for this service. I move, Mr. Zaga, please read 6.3.
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $99,734 from the general fund to the ambulance service budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $99,734 from the general fund to the medical dental hospital line item in the ambulance service budget for 2015. Article 2, said appropriation will be divided into 4 equal monthly installments to Central EMS to be paid on or before the 15th of the month beginning in August 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Zaga. I move to pass 6.3.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Would you please call the roll, Carly?
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond,
Yes.
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman,
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted. I'd like to take a little bit of privilege. Becky, I would like to thank your group for all you do. I think we all around this horseshoe understand the importance, and we do appreciate you. Thank you very much. Would you like to be recognized to say something?
Yeah.
Comes forward and go ahead, please.
I don't really want to sit down, but I just want to thank the court. If I sit down, I'll be here for a while. I just want to thank the court for the support, and Washington County is blessed to have the support of the Quorum Court, because other places don't have that. And we have a seamless service, and quite frankly, it hit pretty close to home this week. So we're just in good shape here, and I'm glad that we have the team and the support that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Yes, Tom.
I'd just like to make a brief comment and thank Becky and the Quorum Court and the Ambulance Board for supporting this whole project, because the 3 main cities in my district would have been without ambulance service, totally without this, and none of them were financially able to do it on their own. So I really appreciate the support on this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take a moment to also kind of go back against 6.1 and 6.3, and I want to thank the court for the support in this too. These were important votes for us for our ambulance service in Northwest Arkansas in Washington County. The resolution and the in 6.1 and the ordinance in 6.3 allow the other 3 cities in Tom's district to go forward with their budgeting, knowing that we are going to support a certain amount, and they have committed to a certain amount should we do that. So I want to thank all the court members for supporting this. And on to 6.4. This is an ordinance to appropriate funds for the Prairie Grove District Court. As it reported to me, a car went through their building, and this is for repairs. Steve, would you read 6.4?
Sorry, I chuckled. I used to prosecute in that building. An ordinance recognizing an additional revenue of $6,406 in the general fund and appropriating the amount of $6,406 to the district court security budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby recognized additional revenue of $6,406 in the state grants revenue line item of the general fund for 2015. And Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $6,406 from the general fund to the following line items in the district court security budget for 2015. District Court Security, small equipment, $2,556. Building supplies and material, $3,850, for a total appropriation of $6,406.
I'd like to move the adoption of 6.4.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Carla, would you please call the roll?
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison, Joe Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond,
Yes.
Bill Ussery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman,
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted.
Okay. Moving on to item 6.5. This is an ordinance to appropriate additional funds for the Environmental Affairs Recycling Program. We have had an unanticipated increase in recycling costs for the CRTs that we take in, and in response to this, they've raised the recycling fee for the CRTs from $5 to $10 each, and that will defray some of the cost of the increase, but not all of it. It also recognizes some additional revenue for fluorescent light recycling. Mr. Zega, please.
An ordinance anticipating additional revenue of $10,576 in the general fund and appropriating the amount of $31,083 from the general fund to the environmental affairs budget for 2015. Article 1. There is hereby anticipated additional revenue of $10,576 in the fluorescent bulbs revenue line item of the general fund for 2015. Article 2. There is hereby appropriated the amount of $31,083 from the general fund to the other professional services line item of the environmental affairs budget for 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Zega. I would move that 6.5 pass.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. J.P. Bowman.
I just noticed that this is coming from fluorescent bulbs. I know today the technology is moving toward LED lighting. Would that be a less costly way to look at lighting our facilities instead of fluorescent? Does anybody know about that?
I'll comment a little bit on that. Ron has been working with the electric companies to get all of our bulbs changed out, and then we get a rebate from the companies, and I can't give you the price on that. Ron could tell you, but we are working toward that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Carla, would you call?
Sharon Lloyd,
No.
Tom Lundstrom,
No.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Joe Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond,
Yes.
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman,
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted. Thank you.
Next up is 6.6. It is an ordinance anticipating grant revenue for the HOFNOD, Hooked on Fish, Not on Fishing, Not on Drugs budget. Mr. Zega, please.
An ordinance anticipating revenue in the amount of $18,000 in the JDC grant fund, pardon me, and appropriating the amount of $18,000 from the JDC grant fund to the JDC HOFNOD budget for 2015. Article 1. There is hereby anticipated additional revenue in the amount of $18,000 in the state grants revenue line item of the JDC grant fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $18,000 from the JDC grant fund to the improvements other than buildings line item in the JDC HOFNOD budget for 2015.
Thank you, Steve. I move to pass 6.6.
Second.
Did I get a second? I'm sorry. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No further comments. Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Ussery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman, Ann Harbison,
This ordinance is adopted.
And our last item from the Finance Committee, 6.7, is an ordinance recognizing grant revenue for the JAG grant budget, which is Justice Assistance Grant, and appropriates that revenue to purchase a computer and some small equipment. Mr. Zega, please.
An ordinance recognizing additional revenue of $14,255 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund for 2015 and appropriating $14,255 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the 2015 JAG grant budget. Article 1. There is hereby recognized additional revenue of $14,255 in the other federal grants revenue line item of the Law Enforcement Grant Fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the total amount of $14,255 to the following line items in the 2015 JAG grant budget. 2015 JAG grant small equipment, $12,320. Computer IT equipment, $1,935, for a total appropriation of $14,255.
Thank you, Mr. Zega. I move to pass 6.7.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Joe Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Ussery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
John Furman, Ann Harbison,
This ordinance is adopted. Thank you. Yes, J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've just had a comment about our Finance Committee meeting. At that meeting, and I'll ask for the Chair's indulgence in this, at that meeting there were some inquiries from members about line item transfers from some line items to a food line item, and we discovered that was to pay for bottled water in the building. And I was surprised that we were paying for bottled water in the building, assuming we had water fountains. We were told that our water fountains didn't meet standards and that the health department had made us take them out. And I was surprised by that. I asked for documentation. I have not heard back on that, but I did decide to check with the health department. The health department does not inspect water fountains, and they had nothing to do with the water fountains being removed. And in fact, there's one right outside this room in the hallway that's still there, while we were told there was bottled water out there. It's a rather long story that I won't go into right now, but some of the water fountains have been removed in the building, and bottled water has replaced it, but it was not because of the health department. And I just wanted to make everybody aware that we had gotten some information that wasn't totally accurate. So
Thank you,
thank
J.P.
you, Madam
Madison.
Judge.
The next thing coming up is the county judge report, and we have the annual report from Mr. Bill Bradley. Bill, will you come forward and introduce yourself, please?
I will sit down.
That's okay.
I'm Bill Bradley, Chief Executive Officer of Washington Regional, and appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and thank you for the annual invitation, Judge Edwards. Most of you should have gotten either electronically or via hard copy our annual report, and I'll probably just walk through that with you and then address any questions that you may have. I would want to start by saying how proud I am of our people at Washington Regional, my teammates. We've gone through a lot out there with health reform, a lot of growth, throwing in some construction, a lot going on, and our people have stayed focused and done a great job, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you how proud I am of them. And I think some of them probably have taken care of some of y'all through the years. There's a theme for this year. It's been growth. If you look at hospitals are typically measured by how much admission growth they have. The average hospital in this state grew about 1.5% in admissions. Nationally, it's about 2%, most of that from aging population creating that demand. For us, we grew 9%. So we're growing at about 6 times as fast as the average hospital in Arkansas, and there's probably a lot of reasons for that. And we have, most of you I think know, we have about 2,200 employees, and we expect to add at least a couple hundred more over the next 18 months. So there's a lot going on. If I look at 2015 year to date, looks like we're going to grow another 9%. So that's 9% compounded for 2 years in a row. And we don't even have our women's expansion done, so it's not babies, which would be a good thing. Unfortunately, it's, many ill people. What I'd do is give you a little bit of highlights of some of our programs. Probably number one, I think we're pretty well known for our heart program. It's a very busy program. We have the only electrophysiology program in Northwest Arkansas. For those of you that aren't clinicians, electrophysiology, there's two kind of cardiologists, plumbers and electricians, and they're the electricians. Most of our cardiologists are plumbers, but they're the electricians. We've also, if any of you have gone through a cardiac cath procedure, you know that they access the heart with the catheter through the femoral artery typically. Over this past year, we've started accessing through the wrist for patients that are eligible for that or that we can access through the wrist. A much smaller catheter, and we've had a lot of success with that. Our whole cardiology interventional program received a Award of Excellence from Healthgrades, which is an independent third party that evaluates various hospitals across the country. And just to give you an indication of volume, we did over 5,500 cardiac catheterizations this year. So very, very busy. Our total joint program has been very busy as well, and we were recognized this year, just recently, as one of America's 100 best hospitals for orthopedic surgery. And a key part of that has been our joint program. Dr. Chris Hanby is the lead physician and medical director of that. He's the only fellowship-trained joint replacement physician in Northwest Arkansas. And we did over 650 joint replacements this year. So again, very busy. Probably our biggest change this past year has been in our neurosurgery area. For a long time, Northwest Arkansas has limped along pretty uncovered in neurosurgery. A lot of the neurosurgeons through the years have given up doing cranial surgery or head surgery and just focused on spine surgery. So we're the only hospital left in Northwest Arkansas that does actual brain surgery. And we have several new physicians that have joined us. We actually have 5 neurosurgeons now, and we feel very fortunate. Excuse me. 2 of those are endovascular neurosurgeons. And, we talked about cardiac stents a while ago. Now we're doing brain stents at the hospital. And these 2 neurosurgeons are only 2 of a little over 100 in the whole United States with this training. It's relatively new. And some of the testimonial type stories and patient successes that we've had have been amazing, where people were on the table and having severe symptoms from a stroke, and start to get relief of those symptoms right on the OR table. And many of them are out of the hospital in like 2 or 3 days. So it's pretty amazing. We also have a fellowship-trained complex spine surgeon that trained at Harvard that is here doing back surgeries. We're the only place that can do cerebral aneurysm surgery, and we do some of those. Most of those are a crisis when we're doing them. And then our stroke program, which we're very proud of. Excuse me, our women's expansion is 130,000 square feet. We're going to be spending about somewhere around $65 million on that expansion. This is our second expansion since Washington Regional moved out where we are in 2002. That facility will have an expanded neonatal intensive care unit. We'll go from 12 beds to 34 beds. We'll probably have one of the larger neonatal intensive care units outside of Children's Hospital in Little Rock. We'll add some patient rooms, obviously, and we need them for our growth. There's several times in the last 3 months that we've been on divert, which basically means there's no room at the end. There was one day during that period of time where every hospital in Northwest Arkansas was on divert, which means nobody's on divert. We're building a 4-level parking garage that will add 350 parking spots, and we can use those as well. Interestingly enough, we're adding a second helicopter pad. We're also the only trauma center in the area, or the highest ranked trauma center in the area. So a lot of trauma patients are diverted to our facility. We've had occasions where we've had, for lack of a better way of describing it, traffic jam of helicopters trying to land where they're circling or landing on the front lawn. And so we're going to definitely put this second pad to good use. And it will be on the roof of our expansion. Our commitment to our seniors, which most of our patients are seniors, is significant. We have a memory clinic that provides a great service, a movement disorders clinic led by Alan Diamond, Dr. Alan Diamond, who's probably one of the top 25 movement disorder specialists in the country. We've received quite a few grants on Parkinson's and Huntington's studies. And then we also have a center for exercise in the senior center that's open to everybody, but certainly focused on seniors. Our hospice program, which most of you are aware, about 3 years ago, we built a hospice home. That's been very successful, stays pretty full, and Dr. Stan Bradley heads that up and is doing a great job. We get a lot of very positive feedback from patient families over there, what a help it was for their situation and helping their loved one. The emergency room continues to be busy. This year, we're the only level 2 trauma center, as I mentioned. This year, we'll do about 55,000 visits in our emergency department. That's about 150 visits a day. One of the things that we did this year was to open an urgent care center across the street from our emergency department. Our thinking was a lot of the patients coming to our emergency room now, since we're a trauma center, are very sick. If you're in the emergency department and you're not really very sick compared to them, you're going to wait. And that's usually a dissatisfier for people that wait longer than they think they should. So we opened up our urgent care center across from the emergency room, that's already averaging 30 patients a day. It's only been open a few months. And in the meantime, we thought our volume would go down in the emergency department, and it hasn't. It's actually gone up. So we hadn't figured out exactly why, but that's what's happened. It's so, you know, we expect to get up to 50 or 60 patients a day in urgent care, and we're starting to believe our emergency department will not slow down. So we also, when I came to Washington Regional, we had about 12 what we call integrated physicians, which are employees of the hospital. Now we have 130 physicians that are employees of the hospital. We saw about 250,000, had 250,000 clinic visits last year in our clinics, and we expect this year, 2015, to see about a 20% increase in that number. Very busy. During the past 3 years, we've recruited over 50 new physicians to the area, which is quite an investment for us to make, but most of them are pretty busy now, and some first-time specialties for the area. In our report that was given to you, there's an area in here that focuses particularly on nursing, and no apologies to physicians or our other employees at the hospital, but nursing is the heart of the hospital. And we're, coping well with the nursing shortage. A lot of we subsidize both of the nursing programs, one at NWAC and one at the U of A, which have allowed them to expand enrollment of those programs. It's not totally altruistic on our part, because we get our fair share of those nurses, and they train on our systems, so they come pretty much prepared to be Washington Regional employees. So we do get return on investment from our subsidy. Several things. Dr. Ratcliffe, David Ratcliffe, is our Chief Medical Officer, and we've received several awards this year. Health Grades gave us the Patient Safety Excellence Award. We were the only hospital in Northwest Arkansas to receive that, and there were only 4 in the whole state to receive that. That distinction places us probably in the top 10% on patient safety in the nation. The Joint Commission, which is a group that accredits hospitals, also recognized us as a top performer in key quality measures, and we were one of only 16 hospitals in the state to receive that. Our Information Technology Department, which Justice Cochran is part of, for the second year in a row, made the annual list of the top 25 best IT departments nationwide. And so all my peers, I say, our computer geeks are better than your computer geeks. The other thing is just our community benefit. I can remind you, we work with the county at the Department of Health on prenatal care and the HIV clinic at the Department of Health as well. We're probably the major donor for the Northwest Arkansas Free Health Clinic. Provide a lot of tuition to those going into healthcare professions as well. One of the other things we started this year was a dental clinic. We've been in the teeth extraction business in the ER for years, but we haven't been in doing dental treatment. Well, we're in that now with a mobile van that we received a grant from Walmart for. And we're averaging about 1,100 patients a year, and we drive to the site. I think we're at Seven Hills at least 2 days a week, and serving patients that have no access to dental care and certainly no dental insurance coverage. So that's all I have, Judge. I'd be happy to answer any questions the court has.
There we go. Last year when you were in here, you had said something about the shortfall from the reduction in the Medicare payment. Has that worked out, or has it impacted the hospital in what way?
Well, I wouldn't say it's worked out. More people are covered now, and I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing more volume in our emergency department. But hospitals financed about 20% of healthcare reform through cuts. So I'd say the cuts we took, about 35 to 40% of it has been offset by people that now have coverage that come to the hospital that before didn't have any and were uncompensated care. But we still have a shortfall by over half from what our cuts were.
So about half.
Mm-hmm.
How many uninsured people are we having come in the emergency room now?
I'd say at least out of that 55,000 a year number, somewhere around 15 to 20% have no coverage.
Do you help them get coverage when they come in?
Well, we help them treat them first, and we can't. Sometimes it's not possible to get them coverage. We've become experts at enrolling people that are eligible into Medicaid and into the health exchanges, but sometimes it's just not possible to get them coverage, and we're not an insurer.
The other thing is, I want to thank you for the dental program, because it's helping a lot of people that normally would not be getting any kind of dental work done. And so that, because I come in South Fayetteville, I see that. In fact, I think the first week it was out, I had some farm help. Took right by there, got them in, and they're on that program now. So, thank you for that program. What's our wait time in the emergency room now?
Well, it depends on what's going on when you go.
What's wrong with you?
I think it's our average time would probably be hour and a half. And again, it depends on if you're waiting there and helicopters are landing and ambulances are pulling in, and I've seen personally probably at least a half dozen ambulances parked under the canopy and a helicopter on the pad at one time. And those are usually higher acuity patients, and you get bumped. And that's why it's not instantaneous, it's not a first come, first serve model. It's a worst come, first serve model.
Well, some of your competition in the north of you are putting out, you will have no more than 30 minutes wait in the emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, two things I can say about that. One, they're probably not all that busy. The second thing I would say is that we've actually gotten calls from their ER to our ER wanting to know what's the wait time down there. Obviously, those patients aren't terribly sick, but because they're shopping for waiting times. But anyway, that doesn't seem to have hurt our volume at all.
Well, I appreciate everything you do. I've been in the emergency room with people, and sometimes it's a long time, sometimes it's short.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, when you've got ambulances coming in, if you've had a wreck somewhere or whatever, thank you for your service to Northwest Arkansas.
Sure.
Mr. Bradley, I was curious. maybe for my own benefit and to help others learn the difference. The urgent care center that you've opened compared to the ER, when should someone go to which place? Because I don't know the answer to that, and I think it might be beneficial if we get that out there.
Well, I think the first thing I would say is if you have a doubt, go to the ER. Because the first thing that will happen when you get to the ER is you'll be screened, and then you'll see an advanced nurse practitioner that will triage the severity of what they think's going on with you clinically. And they'll give you the option of, they may even suggest that you go to urgent care because it's going to be quicker and it's going to be cheaper. And some people, even given all those options, elect to stay in the ER. I haven't figured that out, but they do. And if you need to stay in the ER after you've been screened and triaged, again, it will, determine, if you're having chest pain, you're probably going to go in pretty quick. Stroke symptoms, you're going to go in pretty quick. So it depends on what's going on.
What are you typically seeing at the urgent care? I mean,
well, it's basically, I would say, we're seeing some broken bones over there, but otherwise I'd say it's a doctor's office after hours.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Judge. That actually was one of the questions I was going to ask, whether or not people are still using the ER as their primary caregiver. It sounds like that is still happening.
Yes, they are.
And I was glad to hear the answer to J.P. Harbison's question that, yes, you are trying to help them get signed up for universal health care coverage.
Oh, yeah,
So,
it's to our advantage to do that, too.
Surely we'll slowly get that problem corrected. But I think I'm
You
probably...
may need to convince the legislature of that. But.
We'll work on that. I think I'm probably the only JP on this court today that was on the court when this county sold Washington Regional to your private nonprofit, I believe in 91, for the grand total of $25. And back then, when we heard the annual reports, there were JPs that always reminded the chief executive, such as yourself, that some charity care was expected every year, and that did not mean unpaid debts. Are you still doing some truly charity care?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have a whole program for that and an application process that people go through. It's basically means tested, but we do in an average year somewhere around $10 million in charity care, and that's not based on charges. That's based on cost.
Okay. Thank you for doing that. There are still a lot of people in need in this area who, for one reason or another, may not have signed up for coverage.
Yeah, we take all comers.
Okay. That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other discussion? Mr. Brandon, we always appreciate your coming. We're watching this Arkansas grow through the hospital, so we know what you're doing.
Well,
and we thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
The next thing I have on the agenda is the Law Library Board appointment. At the request of the Washington County Bar Association, I'm asking that Susan Pirtle be reappointed to the County Law Library Board. This will be for a 5-year term to expire in the year of 2021. Second. You're recognized, J.P. Madison.
I just want to say that Susan Pirtle is a wonderful person. I've known her for a long time. If those of you who don't know her, she works for Legal Aid and has dedicated her legal career to helping those that need the most help legally. And so I can't imagine a better person to serve and continue her service to the public on the Law Library Board.
I think she loves what she does.
I think she does too. And she's not hesitant to call some of us and ask for help when she needs it too.
All in favor of this appointment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you folks very much for that. The next thing I have, I want to update everyone on some of the matters related to the bridge investigation. First, I want to talk about the Stonewall Bridge. County has contracted with Iowa Bridge Company for Mr. Jim Griffith to provide supervision to the county road workers to complete this bridge, and the work started on Stonewall Bridge on June the 8th. Have contracted with GTS to do the technical testing on this bridge with engineer Jim Beatty doing phase work inspections. They were doing, let me just give you a little bit on Mr. Jim Griffith is with the Iowa Bridge Company. He is actually a resident of West Fork. He has built bridges everywhere. He comes in and he will see what needs to be done, tell what needs to be done, direct the people there, and they'll go in and do the work with supervision of two of the other people. We were doing really, really well. Things were moving great until the weather. So things have had to back off because of the water, but they are doing an excellent job now, and I just wanted to make you aware of that. Yes, JP.
Lindstrom.
I've got you. Hey, I got your name right here.
I wonder if you can give us some kind of an estimate of the cost of that contract. You have that?
There is, the Iowa Bridge Company is charging us $200 an hour. That's the contract. And he only spends a very few hours there. So I mean, he just comes out. We use him when we need him. So I don't know what that'll be, J.P. Lundstrom, but he's doing it by the hour. The next thing I have is the Harvey Dow Bridge. Bids were open Tuesday, June the 16th. We received 5 bids ranging from $166,500 to $393,400, which I will have to tell you, I was surprised that it was that high. I know we talked about $100,000 to $200,000, which one of them got in that range, but I was very, very surprised that the last one being as high as it was. The low bid came from Benchmark Construction, was all in order, and it has been awarded. They are also a local company from Northwest Arkansas, Benchmark. They will start the work on that bridge as soon as the weather will allow and we can get the permit. And sometimes that takes a while to get a permit, but we're working toward that now. Once they start, the contract says 90 days. But they feel confident, and I don't want to say this for us to be disappointed, but they feel confident we'll be able to finish that project in 60 or so days rather than 90. So I was very pleased with that. The Road Department Employees Concerned Safety Committee we have established a committee of 8 people, and this committee is strictly composed of employees that work at the Road Department. They held their first organizational meeting on May the 27th and then met again on June the 8th. The committee is addressing safety procedures and equipment needs. So they are just now in the beginning practice, but they are meeting. And it's not supervisors, it's actually the employees that work for the road department that is doing this. Yes.
Once again, what was the bid for the Benchmark Construction? What was their bid?
$166,500.
And that was the one we accepted?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
J.P. Madison.
And did that include the changing of the guardrail curbing situation?
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Hang on just a moment,
Thank you,
please.
Judge.
Improvement on the internal hiring policies. I know we've had some difficulties with that. New internal application process and forms have been implemented. Job openings are posted internally for 5 days. That way we give the people that sometimes they don't come into the road department except on Fridays. And that way it gives them a chance to see the job postings, and they've got an opportunity to be able to see everything that is available. Written assessments on safety and work policies has been developed for applicants. Skill tests will soon be completed for each job. Assessments and skill tests have a corresponding quantitative scoring card. So we are working on that. But like I say, the only thing we like is the skill testing. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background, and I'm not sure exactly, but what they're going to do. Say we're hiring a grader operator. We want someone that can judge those operators and not be involved in maybe what they're, in other words, they don't know. And those folks will go out, and let's say we have 3 people that want to test to be a grader operator. They will go out, they will have those folks to grade a certain area of the road. They'll have them to do different things, and I'm certainly not capable of speaking. If we need to, we can have Sean to discuss this. The people that will be grading them won't know which one of those fellas or girls, if they have that, have actually graded that. They will grade it on the finished product. So that's what we're working on toward that now. The road department structural changes, we're currently reviewing structural changes with the salary consultant, Blair Johansson. And Blair has been working with Lindsay and some other people, and I have not had an opportunity to get involved in that as of yet. We've had training classes on 5/29. We had the Mining and Safety and Health Administration class. On June the 12th, we had Wage and Hour class that Lindsay actually conducted. The 3 days of Dale Carnegie classes was completed, received good feedback from those who attended. We anticipate holding another session in the fall for another group of the supervisors. We also have been given a memorandum from Sean, it's 7.2, in regard to the T-square class that J.P. Bowman has been looking into. You will see that has been a part of this program since, you will see that this has been a part of this program since year of 2010 and has already been taken, we've already been taking advantage of this training. Now, if you'll look, you'll see that 7.2, and then follow up on the back. You can see some of those classes, and then you can see, I'm sorry, I can't get that turned. Then you'll see that this information that J.P. Bowman provided for us. So we have been looking at these classes. Some of these things have been working on. We've actually been doing some of these classes in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Now, the university will only allow us to do so many for us, because what it is, this money is shared over the state with other counties. But I'm very pleased. I thank J.P. Bowman for working on this, and we're making good progress on it. Thank you. Yes, you're recognized, J.P. Bowman.
I guess in looking at the classes being that they have been through.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, forklift certification. But it looked like that the flaggers, driving safety, chainsaw safety, and so forth. But I don't see anything on here that relates to road construction or the bridge construction type classes. Is it possible for us to request specific classes when we do a training session, or is this something we just have to accept whatever they provide?
Sean, can you answer that for me? Can we request some classes from the university? Would you come up here for just a minute, Sean? On this T classes from the University of Arkansas, if we have a certain thing that we're interested in, can we request those classes, or do we have to take what's available?
No, we can request them, but the classes that we've taken are the ones that really we need. Are more so, I guess, required, like the flagging. We're required to have our flagging, and each year, it's kind of spread out where some are expiring, and so we get a group in. So those are the ones that we're required, and forklift training, we're required to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mentioned in the email, in the past they've only had so much. They want to spread this around, mm-hmm. and so we can't use it all up, all the money. So I'm hoping with that act that maybe some more money will be available and we can get some more classes.
Okay. In my visits with Dr. Williams, she indicated that other counties, if you have a request, that other counties are invited to come in and participate, mm-hmm. so it wouldn't be a single county involved. Mm-hmm. But I was so impressed with the information that came out of Pennsylvania that I felt anything we could do to begin to implement the kind of construction and maintenance programs that they have would be really phenomenal. That seems to be the most advanced group in the nation in gravel road preparation and maintenance. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to see us go ahead and focus in that area as much as possible to maximize the quality of our county roads. Okay. So I guess the thing I'd say next would, should we go ahead and request a specific class that would be most helpful to us at this time in county road maintenance?
I mean, I'm sure we can, and that's something that, we can look into.
Well, Dr. Williams said this special program that the state is going to support us on doesn't begin until October. But she seemed rather enthusiastic about trying to help us and have a local demonstration project here, and I don't know how extensive that would be. She didn't seem to have all the details on that either.
Okay.
But I'd sure like to see us go ahead and focus on road construction and maintenance as a next course.
Okay. One of the things we run into, and I've mentioned it before, is our laws don't always match up with other states. Our right-of-way issues, our drainage easement issues. And I know with talking to other people that have came, they're unaware of those. But yeah, definitely we want to work with her, and we've worked with her in the past. I know her husband as well, and have worked with him some. So,
good.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a great asset to have them up here.
Well, you mean the laws are different? You mean Pennsylvania's laws are different to Arkansas? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what I know we've ran into before. We have people come in and have great ideas, but they find out that we can't turn that water anywhere we want, or they don't understand that we don't have 60 foot of right of way and can't take out, or move ditches over, stuff like that. The
Sean,
difficulties that we run into.
When we were doing the kind of a road tour to give her an idea of what we're dealing with out here, she made several comments about along a steep area that if we could go ahead and divert water from the ditch onto property adjacent to it more frequently, that would help minimize some of the erosion that takes place as water volume builds up. Mm-hmm. Is that something that's not allowed?
We've tried that in the past, and people don't want the water. They don't want it turned into their field, or just for different reasons. I know I met with some people down in Wind Creek a few years ago, and they were under that same impression that we could just turn it out, and that's what we try to do when we can. But there's so many places that people do not want the water.
Well, Sean, I guess the one particular thing I observed was that at one area there had been no turnout in smaller spaces. And in one area, there was probably a space that's probably 100 to 150 feet square where road gravel had washed out into the field. Mm. And a lot of the grass was obscured with the gravel from the road.
Right.
And I'd think they'd be thrilled to death to have small areas where water came out instead of such volume.
And that would depend on the person. And of course, with all the rain we've been having, we've had a lot of that.
Okay.
But yeah, it really does. It depends on the person. Some people don't have a problem with it, and then the next guy you go to, they said, doesn't want it. Okay. There's also issues with turning out the water where utilities will get washed out. Over time, that water will wash out utilities. So it's just issues like that we face and have to overcome.
Okay. Well, I'd sure like to see us go ahead and implement as much of this training as we possibly can as soon as possible.
Okay.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, J.P. Bowman. On the transcript, I have reviewed the transcript preparations, and at this time, I have taken all action I feel is necessary concerning personnel, and I'm not at liberty to comment on this any further because of personnel issues. And I want to reiterate that the main thing that I want to say, and I think we've got information from Jim Beatty, our bridges are not unsafe. What is wrong with our bridges, they will just not hold up for the long term of many, many years if they had been done the way the engineer plans were designed. So I really wanted to make that. I don't want people thinking that our bridges are not safe, because these bridges have been built this way over Washington County for years and years and years. But that's not what I asked for. That was not the design I presented, and I want them to last longer. So by doing this, it does not give the time of the bridge. By the time we get through with these two bridges with the information, but I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. We have been taking action to protect public safety and ensure the wise use of public resources, and we will make sure that these types of problems do not happen again. We're working very diligently. On the Orr Bridge, we got some information back, and I think I've got it in your packet. The questions was that, did someone say? Question was asked by the Quorum Court meeting if Orr Bridge could be repaired rather than replaced. Mr. Beatty has given us a report on that, and I think you'll find that, let me see if I've got it here. I know I do. 7.3, that is under Myers Beatty Engineering. And he has provided this for us, and he tells us, well, I don't want to read all this to you if you want to read it, but he tells us the extent of this would take. This bridge cannot be repaired because of the pins, because of the age, of the terrible, terrible expense it would take. He does not recommend us doing that because he does recommend that we leave it closed. But there is a road that is not very long around that bridge that we may be able to semi-build that road again and kind of get it started, and so the people have transportation rather than using the bridge, they can use the road. But he does not recommend repairing this. Because he says it's unaffordable. We just can't do it. And like I say, please read this information from him. I would appreciate it. Eva, you expressed concern last month about the guardrail on County Road 62. We have been in touch with Jim, and he has told us he tried to get it done today, but he said that he would have the review back and tell us how to handle that. So we're waiting for his review on that, and we're waiting for that to be done. Yes, please.
It's also missing on Harvey Dowell, though, so that's why I had asked.
Well, that will be taken care of, I feel sure, with the.
Is that part of the benchmark contract?
I'm sure it is. It's not part of the. Are we going to do that ourselves, Sean, after we're referred by Mr. Beatty? Okay, that's your answer.
So it's not part of the benchmark contract?
No, but we will do that ourselves, yes.
Our county attorney is looking very puzzled by that answer.
Judge, may I engage?
Yes, please.
I was under the impression that that it was part of the contract. Sean's looking at me and shaking his head, but I do know that we talked to Mr. Beatty in a discussion about the engineering specs, that before that bridge was reopened as designed, he would sign off on the guardrail design. Yes. That was, and I thought it was going to be done by Benchmark, but if it's done by us, I know we had that discussion with him. About addressing that specific issue.
And the engineer, once it is finished, he will sign off on it. So, yes, go ahead.
Well, because, one of the issues is the bridge is also narrower than it's supposed to be, which is a safety issue, and the lack of a guardrail is a safety issue. So for what repairs are being made for the $166,000 then? Because that to me would be a pretty significant part of the expense. So we're going to have more expenses on top of the benchmark contract, right? I guess is what I'm hearing. So,
John, can you give any?
Can we provide us some guidance on what is part of Benchmark's contract?
Yes, Benchmark's contract it addresses the abutments and the piers, the wrapping of the piers, and then the additional walls on the abutments.
Okay.
But we are going to do the guardrail, and he's close with it. It's going to be what it is going to be adding some additional supports to the guardrails. He was fine with the spacing on the guardrail and leaving the guardrail. It's just going to be an additional support. And the main reason is because he was not he was, I guess, had some questions about what size weld we used and stuff like that. So,
well, Mr. Gales' big concern was the lack of a curb, because the curb's notion is that it diverts the vehicle back onto the roadway instead of the vehicle going off into the creek or the river. And that, so is there a plan to put a curb in?
No, Jim does not feel there needs to be a curb. He is fine with the guardrail.
He is the engineer.
He's a structural engineer. There's a lot of state bridges that have guardrail. That's not uncommon.
But most, since I now pay a lot of attention to the bridges I drive over, if state bridges that have guardrails have curbs also. And I spent a lot of time with Carl Gales, and I really respect his opinion. I did spend some time with Jim Beatty, but Jim Beatty's initial plan was that it would have a curb. And Carl Gales said specifically that the reason you have a curb is to keep the vehicle on the bridge. And so that is a safety issue to me that I think we need to give more attention to. I mean, reinforcing the guardrail is certainly important, but Mr. Gales' concern was that a vehicle's going off, and it's probably going to take part of the bridge with it because the guardrail is welded to the beams in the bridge, as opposed to a curb that is wrapped through rebar into the concrete roadway. So it puts a very different part of the bridge structure at risk with the exclusive use of guardrails. So if you've got a guardrail and you hit one of those posts, you're going off and you're taking that part of the bridge with you, as opposed to if there's a curb there, at least it's diverting you back onto the roadway. So I think we need to really rethink that. I'm not sure after all what I've heard from everybody, I think that's a good plan.
I guess that's up to the judge if she wants to second guess.
I will
the
visit
structural
with
engineer.
Jim Beatty, and
We've
he's our
discussed it.
engineer, and I'll go by what he said. J.P. Harbison.
Could we have Jim Beatty come explain to us this safety issue and what he's doing to take care of it? And I think, if he can explain that it's safe, then, we can go with it.
I think Jim would be willing to come in. So I will check with him.
okay.
Yeah, I will check with Jim to see if he can come in and give us an update on all of that. Since March the 19th, I'm sorry, yes, Joel.
I just had one quick question for Sean. Besides the guardrail portion, what other parts of the bridge are not covered by the benchmark cost and that the county's going to pick up on its own?
To my knowledge, that would be it. There was a $200 cost for one of the permits. That's already been taken care of, and actually we've received that permit. We're waiting on the 404 permit from the Corps right now.
If we would have contracted the guardrail part out, do you have a decent guess as to how much that would have cost in above the 166?
I don't, because it hadn't been determined yet. Jim's still working on that. I actually got an email late from him today, but no, I don't have an estimate on that.
Will we have an idea of that at some point in the near future?
I hope so.
Okay.
Should.
Thanks.
Maybe if we can get Jim to come in, he can give us the answer to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since March the 19th, there have been 7 employees resigned from the road department. And I feel very bad that I lost good people, but one of them retired. He had planned to retire, and then some of them left for other reasons. And like I say, that includes my road report for you tonight. I appreciate it. And yes.
Thank you, Judge. Just for the record, were all of the road department employees interviewed? Because you had said at one time that they...
No.
Not of them?
No.
Probably about how many were not interviewed?
Well, there was only 17 interviewed, and I have almost 80.
Okay.
No, they were not all interviewed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next thing we have is committee reports. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. The County Services Committee met on June 1st. The only item on our agenda was a review of the Quorum Court's organizational procedures. We had a healthy discussion about those that will be continued to other meetings, I'm sure. We discussed Robert's Rules of Order, our minutes, our level of decorum and formality, and then we ended with an interesting discussion about anonymous letters. And that concludes my report, Judge.
Thank you. Public Works, J.P. Bowman.
We had a report from the Building and Grounds by Jennifer Hinkle, and she told us that the money that we had taken from their budget was going to, they were going to persist in trying to get by with what they had, and found that the electric bill was down from what it had been the previous year due to all the electrical changes they'd made. So they'll be back to ask us for money if they have to have some. Road Department, Sean came and talked to us about the bridges, and then we'd had a discussion about the fall road tour. We talked about going and reviewing roads out here in the county to see what has been done there. We also talked about this Act 898 and the possibility of getting additional training on construction of county roads by the University of Arkansas. And I got really excited about that, and I hope you did too. I hope that turns out to be a really positive thing to come to our county. That's it.
Thank you. Next thing we have is personnel. Judge Pond. I'm a Judge P. Pond.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the upgrade.
I'll get you right after a while.
We had the Personnel Committee meeting on Monday, June 8th, and our one item of discussion was on the mileage reimbursement practices and procedures for JPs. Basically, just a long discussion on it, back and forth, and that was pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next thing we have JP Tom Lundstrom on jail and law enforcement.
Yes, Judge, we met on June the 8th also. We had a wonderful dinner provided for us by Sheriff Helder and his crew, which we're very thankful for. I think some weight was gained that night. All the reports were pretty much normal. Jeannie Mack said her intakes were 32 last month. She has some special training she's looking forward to providing some of the high-risk children with, which could include CPR training, first aid training, that type of thing, which I think was impressive. Sheriff Helder talked to us some about, I don't remember what we call that, incentive program
Trainings.
for your officers that have extra training.
Educational incentive or certificate pay.
Yeah. He talked some about that just to give us some information regarding it on how it could be funded and so forth. So that was very interesting. I think it would be a good program. And that concludes my report, Judge.
Thank you, sir. Finance, J.P. Cochran, you have anything else?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you.
Finance Budget Committee met June 9th. We received a report from the Treasurer, Bobby Hill. He reported that funds in the county general cash account increased $3.5 million, and that's due to the spring property tax receipts. Road cash fund also increased $500,000 due to the same cause. Revenue projections are reportedly holding well, and we returned to a gain over the same month last year in the sales tax revenue. It's good to know that for year-to-date, both the county sales tax and the jail sales tax increase over last year, year-to-date, are up enough that if we were flat the rest of the year, we would make our projection. So we're in good shape there. Controller Sheriff Bollinger reported no change in unappropriated reserves, and most of the departmental budgets are in good shape year-to-date. And aside from the ordinances we presented tonight from the committee, the only other item on our agenda was to begin determining how we would proceed with our budget process for 2016. We had a good discussion about that. Should wrap that up at our next regular meeting. And after that, I'll present those decisions to the department managers so they understand what we're working on, and that will give them plenty of time to work towards the fall budget process. That concludes my report.
Sir.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Judge.
it. The next thing we have is number 9, emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit. Mr. Maxwell?
An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board. Whereas the Planning and Zoning Board granted a conditional use permit on June 4th for the Mount Pleasant Church expansion, and whereas immediate ratification is necessary by the Quorum Court to prevent undue delay and expense to the applicant, and whereas ratification will not affect any appeal rights any person may have, now therefore be it ordained by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas. Article 1, that the conditional use permit for Mount Pleasant Church expansion granted by the Planning and Zoning Board is hereby ratified. Article 2, Emergency Clause. It is hereby determined that it is in the public's best interest for this ordinance to be effective immediately, and the general health, safety, and welfare of the citizens are affected by such for the reasons as set out above. Therefore, an emergency is declared to exist, and this ordinance shall be and is effective from the date of its passage.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Do I have any public comment? Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Joe Maxwell,
Yes.
Joe Patterson,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Walls, Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Eki,
Yes.
John Furman,
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes. Thank you. This ordinance is adopted. Number 10, J.P. Madison.
Mr. Zago, would you read 10.1, please?
An ordinance establishing vote centers in Washington County for all special elections in 2015. Whereas, pursuant to Arkansas Code Annotated Section 7-5-101, the county may establish by ordinance vote centers for elections, and whereas the Washington County Clerk has certified to the Quorum Court and the Secretary of State that the county has a secure electronic connection sufficient to prevent an elector from voting more than once and to prevent unauthorized access to a computerized registration book maintained by the county clerk, and whereas it is the desire of the Washington County Election Commission and the county clerk to establish duly authorized vote centers for all special elections in 2015, now therefore be it ordained by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, Article 1, there are hereby authorized and established in Washington County vote centers for special elections in the county for 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Zaga. So after we had our initial ordinance on vote centers, which I was a big fan of, the Election Commission took their proposal to the Secretary of State, and you may recall that the Secretary of State's requirements were a bit burdensome, and they were a little concerned whether they had hit everything. They did. They met every requirement, and so the Secretary of State's office came back and approved that initial plan to use vote centers for the school elections. So now the Election Commission is coming back and saying, hey, we want to do it for all special elections this year. We know how to do it. We feel assured that it'll be approved. And I think it's a great idea for special elections because you don't have great turnout, so you can reduce the number of places you have open, hopefully reducing the cost of an election. But I think also it keeps with that goal of letting people go where it's easy. You don't have to go to your polling place. You don't have to remember where you vote if there's fewer polling places than normal. And I applaud the Election Commission and their efforts to do this and think it's, like I said before, it's the sign of the times. So I think they need to have it passed tonight so that they get this done in time to be able to meet all the special elections that they've got coming up. So I think, Mr. Zaga, the proper procedure is that I move to suspend the rules, advance this to the second reading by title only.
We have a motion to suspend the rules. A motion and a second. Do we need a roll call or just a show of hands?
Voice vote's good, too.
Okay, let's do just all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Move forward.
Okay. So I now move that we advance 10.1.
Wait, I need to read it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, title only.
Sorry,
Short.
Justice Madison.
Yeah.
An ordinance establishing vote centers in Washington County for all special elections in 2015.
Okay, now I move that we advance 10.1 to the third and final reading by title only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor for advancing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
An ordinance establishing vote centers in Washington County for all special elections in 2015.
Now I move to pass 10.1.
I have a motion to pass. Let's see, do we have any discussion from the court? Do we have any public comment? Carly, call the roll, please.
Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Joel Maxwell, Jill Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Ussery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman,
No, yes, sir. Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke, John Furman, Ann Harbison.
This ordinance is adopted. Congratulations, folks. We appreciate what you've done. I think this will be an asset to all of us. Thank you.
And if I can just say thank you all for coming and sitting till the end.
Okay, do I have any other business to come before the court? John?
Thank you,
I'm
Judge.
sorry, JP.
That's fine. I was wondering if, Sheriff, do you mind, not trying to put you on the spot here, but I read in the paper this morning about the issue about the parole board, and I'm just wondering if you have any information, and I don't know if you know anything else about it, but I'd just like to have just a 2-minute discussion just so we all know what's going on about that, if you have any information you could provide us.
I didn't read the paper, so.
Well, bear with me here. The way I understand it, they're reviewing some of the policies at the state level.
Okay.
And so that's what they're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
I think you all know or may not know, I've been appointed by the governor to serve on the Legislative Criminal Justice Review Committee, which is the overall committee, and then there are subcommittees that spin off of that. We had our third meeting yesterday in Little Rock, and I am going to be serving on a subcommittee which will be reviewing parole and probation policies to see if that can't be revamped to a certain degree to better fit what our society is right now. I mean, just a little bit of history. I think that you all have seen our populations in our jails, populations in our prisons have just gone crazy over the last couple of years. Well, you remember there was a homicide in Little Rock where an absconder murdered a university student, actually, in Little Rock. And there was a reaction to that whereby the policies prior to that had been basically we're not going to do any technical violations, and therefore we had 50,000 people on parole and probation that were running amok. And then all of a sudden we decided after that we were going to tighten everything up and incarcerate and violate everybody for the slightest technical violation. I believe in part that is what's caused a lot of our overcrowding backlog. There are a lot of other issues too, don't get me wrong, but I'm very interested in finding out what the exact policies are for parole and probation. I'm interested in having some dialogue and being involved in that process to see if there are some changes that can be made to make it better. I don't know. Is that close to answering?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think just the reason that I'm interested in that, I mean, again, this is just the paper, and Dan didn't write the article, so I don't know if it's accurate or not. But based on there was someone that the state hired to do a review of our policies on that parole, and we're, I guess, the only state in the country that's doing this parole violation this way. Yeah. And based on her projections, it sounded like we were going to have we're having the largest increases of any state in the country. And I think, it comes right back to home, obviously. It's something that we're trying to struggle with. And so I think it's real pertinent. And I guess I kind of wonder if it's something that we can send, like a letter or something to the folks that are making these decisions, if that's pertinent to their discussions. Or it's supposed to be a board that's, not part of the legislature, as we understand it.
Right. It's the parole and probation board. Yeah. But that's all part of this comprehensive plan that's going to be developed, and so we're mining down into what those processes are. I'll represent you. I don't think you need to write a letter yet, but it may come at some point. It may get there, and the information that they're referring to, the lady, she spoke as part of the Pew Project a few years back. Whenever was it Act 570? The last reform that we went through. She's phenomenal. The numbers are unbelievable, you guys. The projections are staggering. If we continue down the path that we're going down, the numbers are going to do nothing but increase, and we can't handle it that way. So I'm really encouraged. I'm flattered to be on this committee, but I am guardedly optimistic that we're going to make some significant changes in the way we think. We've got to be smarter about how we do things. I will tell you, one of the testimony that I gave yesterday at one point was that, I've been in law enforcement going on 36 years now, and for probably 25 of that, I was a hook 'em and book 'em guy. I didn't care. I think we had to locate the bad guy, arrest him, put him in jail, and then, I wipe my hands. But, for the last almost 11 years, I've got a different perspective. I still believe we've got to do that, but we've got to be smarter in how we do that. Now that I manage detention center, and I'm involved at the state level with all of this, I just see that the problems that causes, we've got to do things differently, and that's engaging our community, that's engaging our faith-based organizations, that's engaging treatment, intervention. There are a lot of things that go into this. There's a lot of moving parts, but I'm confident we can get there, but it's going to take some work. So anyway, I'll keep you updated. I think we've had our third meeting. There are going to be a lot more. So anyway, thank you,
Sheriff,
John.
thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff. I appreciate it.
We
Thank you,
appreciate you, and I just want to say congratulations for the appointment.
Yeah, well, thank you. They called, and, I've had these appointments before, and they are flattering. But I said, okay, what are the time constraints? What are my obligations? Well, you'll meet quarterly. And I said, I can do that. Well, we've met every 3 weeks. So.
Well, anyway,
it's fine. I'm happy to do it.
And we're proud to have you there.
Thank you.
Yes, J.P. Bowman.
Additional business?
Yes.
Guys, I have two things here. First thing is our attorney, Zaga, gave us this packet with the updates to our ordinances. And, we talked about this. I think Eva's group is going to be looking at this next time we have a session there. What I'd ask everybody to do is go through our old ordinances and look at the new ordinances here, and let's try to come together with suggestions about what we want in our new ordinances. And I think, Mr. Zaga, you told us that as far as a new crew coming on, that you would be responsible for how it's set up, and would you explain that to us?
Well, I think may I engage Justice Bowman in colloquy?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Judge. Justice Bowman, I think the question was about education on the structural ordinances, which is part of what I tried to accomplish here. Okay. And as I recall in the meeting, in the county services meeting, you and Justice Eva Madison began to talk about, as well as Justice Ecke, began to talk about the process of training on Robert's rules, which I'm happy to do to the extent that I know, but I think that y'all had discussed possibly a university class or a university professor. And frankly, while I think I've got a decent handle on the basics of Robert's rules, somebody who teaches it would be, frankly, much better. And I would have a lot to learn in that process as well. I am your parliamentarian, and fortunately have not been called on much to make parliamentary rulings at this point. Having said all that, what I think if I remember correctly, your questions about bringing y'all up to speed on your organizational and compensation ordinances, I think that falls to me as part of my job as county attorney. And part of what I tried to do in the memo was to kind of give you a broad-based look at sort of a 30,000-foot level look at what is in the book right now. I would suggest, Justice Bowman, that the several municipal and I believe county bodies, quorum courts that I've seen at work, have ordinance review committees where they essentially go stem to stern through the ordinance book and start looking at things that need to be changed, things that need to be thrown out, that sort of stuff. And at the pleasure of the court, I would be happy to assist in the drafting of those kinds of things and to attend meetings if you wanted to do an ordinance review committee as either an ad hoc or standing committee of the court. Seems to me like that's probably a good idea for each new court to do as they come in.
I agree.
But that's up to y'all how you want to lick that particular calf. I would say that. Skin a cat, lick a calf. I'm sorry. Anyway, however you want to take care of that business. Maybe I've mixed my metaphors, which wouldn't be the first time.
Well, I guess.
I'm sorry, Justice Bowman. Anyway, I tried to give you, my intent with this memo was to give you all a jumping off point on the specifics that you discussed in the county services meeting 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I hope I did that. So please, each of you call me with questions or comments.
It's really extensive. I haven't been through it yet. But I guess my concern was I came on, even after the second term, I didn't even know we had the ordinances there until into our second term here. And I felt like there's probably a lot of other people in that same situation. So I just ask that we try to have the group make input into changes you think we need to do to update our ordinances, and then come back and recommend it. Now, if you think we need a committee to do that, I'm open to whatever ideas you want to use. But I just think we need to update ordinance. All right?
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions about that? I have one other issue, Judge, I'd like to
Yes,
talk about for a minute.
go right ahead.
Guys, next thing is that when I came on the court 2.5 years ago, I left our first meeting and I thought, what the heck have I gotten myself into? And I had some of the other members that have been on for a while talk to me later and apologized about what we went through in that meeting. After last year and going through the budget issue, I've seen tension and a rather toxic environment, I feel, that's developed within our county courthouse, both on the court and in the courthouse. And I'm really disappointed in that. We're a team that needs to be working together. And I've seen the thing from what's going on here in the courtroom, but I haven't been exposed to all the details in the courthouse. So I called and made some inquiries to people within the courthouse. And I've received information that during our budget process last year, there were a number of people who were really offended by the way we approach cutting of budgets. Now, and I do too, that it's never an easy process when we start cutting budgets at home or in the courtroom. But the thing I think that we've got to focus on, every one of us has an opportunity to make input into a very positive environment or a very negative environment. Every one of us have responsibility in that. We've talked about it, but, I think it's really time that we, address the big white elephant in the room and say, we've got to do something about this. We've got to make this a team effort. And I want to ask everybody in this courtroom and everybody in this courthouse to take a hard look at your comments, your inputs, your suggestions, and your attitudes about how we do business here. I want this to be a fun, friendly place for us to come and do the best that can be done for Washington County. We're an intelligent bunch of people, or we wouldn't be in this courtroom. And we have an option to do better. And I want to see it better, and I want to see it a lot more fun instead of so much tension. We can only work with the best information we've got available. I hope we're all going to be absolutely honest with each other. But if we disagree, we do not have to be disagreeable. And I've seen a lot of disagreeable. And I think we need to take a serious look about that and shape that up. So that's my thoughts about it. If you have others you'd like to make input, well, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes,
In the theme of J.P. Bowman's comments, I wanted to say that I've sort of sensed just in the past few meetings we've had, it may seem like a formality, but I think just by the elevation of the titles we use, we are elevating our formality. Our meetings have seemed more pleasant. Our interactions are more formal, and I appreciate that. And I think that what we have to remember about our jobs are that we are sometimes tasked with asking the hard questions. With the people that come before us, we have to ask the hard questions, and asking those hard questions when those people are before us is really the only opportunity we have to do it. I believe in transparency of government, and I think all of us do too. So I want those hard questions asked so that all can hear the answer. And I hope that people know that when we ask those hard questions and make those tough decisions, that we're doing it because that's our job, not because it's personal. The budget process last year was challenging because we had a significant decline in our revenue forecast. And we all had to make hard decisions. And cutting budgets is not easy, but it's not personal, and that's our job because we are the legislative branch that oversees the budget process. And so I think we all have to remember that J.P. Bowman is right. We can disagree, but let's not be disagreeable. And I hope that people understand is that if we're asking a hard question, it's not because we're trying to be hard on someone. It's because that's our job. And I think that sometimes those issues get mixed up. And I know there was a recent exchange at a meeting, and I I won't rehash the details, but I left that meeting very bothered by the comments that were made about me. I felt like I was attacked. And so I looked in the employee handbook, and I'm just going to read this provision because I think it's a good reminder for all of us and for all county employees. Employees on duty or in uniform shall refrain from using indecent or profane language. Employees shall be courteous to citizens, maintain command of their temper, and refrain from coarse, boisterous, or insolent language. Upon request, employees must provide citizens their name and any badge number. Employees shall treat superiors, subordinates, and associates in a respectful manner. Employees should practice professional courtesy and refrain from making personal attacks that ridicule, belittle, or defame the county or county personnel. And then it goes on to talk about not engaging in unlawful harassing behavior. But those were the words that I felt like rang true with how I sort of responded to the incident, and I'll leave it at that. But let me say something else too. I still continue to get calls from people about the road department, employees as well as citizens. Some of you all may get them too. And my concern is that despite the work that we're doing on the bridges and the sort of structural is the word that the judge used, the structural changes, the procedural changes, I am still very concerned about the work environment at the road department. I have talked to Lindsay Heffaker. I know that Lindsay is working very hard on some of the HR structural things, but her time is admittedly limited. But I sort of find myself feeling like after having spent 2 very intense weeks working on a short timetable, working really diligently to get answers, and it's been well over a month since that report and exactly 1 month since the day all the information was provided to the judge's office. And I'm concerned that now a month later, we've still got that work environment problem at the road department and that people are still reporting negativity, work ethic issues. You all may remember one of the last slides on the presentation was about all the other issues that needed looking into. And some of those the judge addressed in her report, the promotion process. But there were other things, work ethic, harassing language, negativity, discriminatory remarks, things like that. And I don't know that I see those things addressed because I'm hearing that those things are still there. And I feel bad because I think now all these people are coming to me thinking that I have some power to do something. And I end the calls and say, what is it you want me to do for you? Because these days I'm feeling pretty powerless about anything I have to do with the road department. And I regret that. Because I think these people need a voice, they need somebody to come to and somebody to talk to. The judge, reading between the lines, it sounds like the judge is maybe dispensing some discipline, but can't talk about it because it is a personnel matter. I mentioned in a meeting, I remain concerned that the people that did not cooperate in the investigation have, to my knowledge, not been disciplined. And it's been particularly hard for me this week. Part of the reason why I didn't have time to read the minutes was because I've probably spent 12 to 13 hours this week responding to a very voluminous FOIA request that I received from a road department employee that was for everything I had on the bridge investigation. And so I had to respond to it myself because I was the custodian of my own records. I called the county attorney to discuss my concerns about the request. He was very busy on Duggar issues and was we couldn't talk, but I'm finding myself feeling really helpless in this situation, and I'm just sort of venting about that a little bit, but there's more to be addressed at the road department. I'm glad we're working on the bridges. I'm glad we're working on some of the structural changes, but something has to be done about the work environment. And I don't know what to do with all these people that keep calling me. I mean, J.P. Dennis is sort of indicating that he hears from people too, but I feel bad. I want to help them. And ultimately, the only power we have is the budgetary power, and that's not really a power I want to use, but at some point, if we're getting feedback and we don't think things are being done, we're going to have to work on that. But it's hard for all of us to preach about being polite and getting along and decorum when I feel like our county employees are working in an environment where they really feel like it's awful coming to work. So I don't say all that for anybody to respond tonight. I just put it out there. It's late. I will yield the floor. Thank you, Madam Judge.
Thank you, Judge. One thing we talked about a few minutes ago, or several minutes ago, is about our minutes. And Justice Eva Madison was talking about condensing them for the future. And I don't know who can answer this question, but we have 67 pages this month of minutes, and I would assume that they could probably be condensed down to less than 10 for the Quorum Court and the committees if we did that. What cost is that when we record are the minutes recorded? Is there any recording cost for the minutes? There's not, okay, other than the quarter inch or a little bit more of paper times 15 or 20. What committee would be the appropriate one to go for a ordinance that would address the issue of just putting them in a condensed format and making sure that we have our recording available for the future?
Judge, may
Yes.
I engage
Yes.
Justice Cochran in colloquy?
Yeah.
Justice Cochran, County Services, and I don't think I discussed minutes per se in your packet, and that was actually an omission I made because I knew it was something that County Services had some discussion about. You are free, and if you were to steer yourself into a ditch that I think would get you in legal trouble, I would tell you. But you're free to, within some legal constraints, do some modifications to the way your minutes are published. And I think that there's again, something that I could have some input on in terms of the legal framework on that. But otherwise, you are, if you're within the left and right limits of the law,
Right.
you can basically determine how they're done.
Right.
I would make one other comment. We are coming up on, I think, 2 CUP appeals.
Yes.
I think. Maybe 3. At least 2 are in the hopper. And you hope not? How many? Well, anyway, I know there's one. There's been one filed for certain. For a lot of reasons, I would prefer that your written record on CUP stay a lot the same as it is for meetings now, and I can discuss that at some length with y'all. But in cases where you're sitting essentially as an appellate body, more is probably better than less, and those kinds of discussions. And I'll be happy to discuss that more later. But I think County Services where you need to address the form of your minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zega. And that is one thing that concerned me is the conditional use permit hearings or any other special hearings that we would be err on the side of volume, but where we go through a committee meeting and we basically have our discussions and have our votes. We still have the recorded media, and as long as that's available if someone needed it. So unlikely those areas, I don't believe, would be a court case item, whereas the conditional use permit could be. But what I would ask for you is if you would, just as you've done something on our ordinances here, have your thoughts just brought up for us at some point. No urgency on it, but it's something I'd like to know your thoughts on how we might structure these to reduce the volume, but still protect ourselves in a way that is necessary, because I trust your judgment on that. But it is a lot of paper and a lot of time to go back through there and read it. And I know it's to a certain degree paraphrased.
Yes,
Please.
Justice Cochran, with your permission, I'd be happy to kind of give that report at services with the chair's blessing at the next services meeting, which I'm.
Is that Harvey's?
No, County Services is Justice Madison's.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I don't think that the county attorney's idea of an ordinance review committee might be better for all of this, because J.P. Bowman, who's been the initiator of this, is not on County Services Committee, and I know he can be there, but I'm sort of struggling with whether this shouldn't be an ad hoc committee that sort of pulls off, and this body would be the body that needs to create it. It shouldn't come to county services because we can't create a subcommittee, I don't think. I'm just wondering if that's not maybe a better procedure to get those who are interested in this issue sort of focused on it. So I don't know, but
May I engage Justice Madison in the colloquy? Justice Madison, I think you can do it either way. Now, to create another committee, because you're going to need an ordinance to do that, because you have an ordinance establishing committees already, and entirely appropriate for it to be ad hoc, in my judgment. But in answer to Justice Cochran's statements and concerns, I think Justice Madison is on to something in terms of the big picture, but if this is something you want taken care of, like say within the next 30 to 45 days, it may need to go to another committee.
Okay.
Appropriate or inappropriate?
I think either is appropriate, actually. Yes.
Well, then, I would just ask the members of the court that if you're interested in getting onto an ad hoc or a formal committee to review our ordinances, contact our young lady Karen over here and say, hey, I'd like to do it. And then we'll kind of see what our interest is. So it'll just be informal in that way. And if there's enough interest, we can draft the ordinance to make that committee and get it going and just have it stacked onto one of our nightly meetings through the month so we don't have an extra meeting night. And that's all I have. Thank you, Judge.
Well, I guess my thought about this was go ahead and have everybody's ideas for all of us to come back with notes made in what Attorney Zega has given us, and then make inputs of those, give them to Karen or whomever to go ahead and construct, or maybe Mr. Zega to go ahead and finish up and pull it all together. Well, that was my thought process. If you don't want to do that, well, whatever you find suitable will be fine with me. From a standpoint of the minutes and so forth, we had talked about the possibility of recording video and audio recordings of all of our meetings and having those on the website. Personally, I think it would be a very positive thing to have that, because that way, guys, we don't have a lot of news media in here all the time, but any of the media that wanted to know what's going on in the courtroom would have access to exactly what was said and to see the interaction in the courtroom. And I think that would be beneficial, because I found it interesting to go back and look at the meetings and hear what was said and see what was said myself, and I'm sure others would find that positive as well. But we never did get a report on what it would cost to accomplish that. Do we have any feedback on cost on that? I think Karen has her hand up.
I have initiated conversations with the city of Fayetteville, and we haven't met yet to actually discuss that, but they are willing to start doing that, and would probably do us a group. They kind of do an hourly rate now, but they're going to present a package deal to do all the committee meetings. Committee meetings can't be live, but they can definitely be aired later, and then, of course, be put on the website for anybody to view at any time. So we're in conversations with that, and I think we should have something decided within the next few days even.
I don't think it being live would be an important issue as long as it was posted and people could have access to it. So I think that's something to be very positive, and that'd help to eliminate the need for copious notes about the individual meetings and what's taking place. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. While we're discussing having some way we can go back and look at a video or have minutes of some kind of read of the meeting in its entirety, I'm sitting here thinking about how important that is. It needs to be written down some way. I was thinking about, it has not been that many years ago when we got into a discussion about building an animal shelter and the need for an animal shelter. And we on the court were presented with a folder about that thick of minutes in their entirety from the Animal Concerns Advisory Board. And I can't begin to tell you how valuable that was. Took a while to go through, but because everything they said was in there at those board meetings, it gave you a full picture of what the people on the board had researched, what their experience was, how their personal feelings about the issues and the needs. Without those minutes, for me to read in their entirety, I would not have been able to get a handle on all that board had done. But whatever you decide to do, some way or other, you need to have all of that written down or on a video or something where somebody can research that if there's ever a need in the future. I'm a little hesitant about thinking about condensing our minutes, because when somebody goes back to research that, then they're going to have to dig someplace else to find out what was actually said. And they're going to, if I'm going to research something like that, I don't want the cliff notes. I want to know what was actually said to get the full meaning of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Judge. This is for Mr. Zega. Is an ordinance necessary, or can it just be a consensus by the court to say this is what we want? Thank you.
Well, may I engage in colloquy with Justice Ecke? Thank you, Judge. Justice Ecke, you bring up a good point. As I think both Justices Madison tonight have pointed out, the Robert's rules by which past courts have elected to be governed talk about minutes and talk about them in terms of an abbreviated or condensed version of notes, essentially, of what happened in a meeting. We have been, having said that, this court's been doing business like this in terms of the minutes for, well, I've been associated with it for 16 years now.
1977. 1977.
So it may very well be that all you need to do is essentially say, this is how we want our minutes within legal limits. Let me, if I may explain, part of my hesitance was simply saying we're going by Robert's rules in the minutes issue. Robert's rules were written as a generic set of procedures for all deliberative bodies, and I forget the guy's first name, but by an English general whose last name was Robert, and very good way to do business. You have certain, as an actual legislative body, you have certain obligations that many deliberative bodies and clubs and organizations simply don't have. And so while there's probably a lot of merit in the idea that we don't need 38 pages of minutes, and this is your policy to decide, by the way, I'm just offering an opinion, you also need to have written minutes that are robust enough to provide justification for your actions should they be challenged in court, frankly. And that's my overarching concern.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
The General Assembly keeps no minutes. Just want to point that out. Not for committees, not for anything. But so I'm not sure we are required to have minutes of our quorum court meetings. That's the state statutory requirement, and the state statute does not define what those minutes are. That's up to us. My concern is that right now we have this odd hybrid. We're not doing word for word what we said. Like the city of Fayetteville does a transcript. Someone sits there and gets word for word. But we're also not reducing it just to our official actions. And what concerns me is that what I say is being interpreted by somebody else. And if you look at the committee minutes tonight that were in our packet that are never approved, you're going to see some significant disparities in the detail that's covered. J.P. Lundstrom's committee that met is almost a word-for-word assessment of the meeting. The Finance Committee, where we had some very heated exchanges, it's absent from the minutes, completely absent. What I would say is some significant exchanges that happened at that meeting are gone from the minutes. And so I'm concerned about this filter that we're going through, especially the process of us not approving them. So I think we either need to decide that we're going to have the bare minimum minutes and rely on this recorded record. And then in the instances where we have potentially legal action coming, we have an ordinance to address those situations. And I know that Mr. Zaga has recommended that we use a court reporter for some of those, like the cell tower appeals, where we actually have to have a written record prepared pretty quickly. But if we're going to have actual minutes like J.P. Pond wants, I think we need to go to word for word. It almost needs to be like a court reporter. We don't have to have a court reporter do it, but I think it shows the importance of speaking into our microphones and having speakers come forward so that everything can be recorded and everything can be captured. That's why I've been trying to get people to come forward to the microphone, is so that we can catch everything. I'm just very concerned about having this hybrid where somebody else is deciding what's in our minutes and what's not. So I think we probably need to have a committee to discuss this. I think there's a lot of issues surrounding this, a lot of competing interests. So I'm happy to do whatever's necessary to affect that. Thank you, Madam Judge.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I would just echo the need for consistency, whichever one we decide. But I guess a question for Mr. Zaga, just for clarification, is if we have every one of our meetings are digitally recorded, either audio or video and audio as well, isn't that sufficient documentation should anything come up legally that requires specifics? And I guess in addition to that, if the written minutes don't completely show congruence with the recorded stuff, like Justice Madison mentioned a moment ago, there's several instances like that, wouldn't the recorded, documented stuff from a digital side be brought into play in that instance anyway?
Let me answer your questions in the reverse order,
Absolutely.
if I may.
Sometimes I ask them backwards.
No, that's fine. In the first instance, the answer is no, and the reason the answer is no is that the act of voting to approve the minutes at the beginning of each meeting has legal significance.
Yes.
Where you are essentially blessing by vote, this is what we said and did at our last regular meeting. They could come into play. They could potentially come into play, for example, if one of your ordinances was constitutionally challenged in a court action. And I've seen this happen because I've done it against a city council that will remain nameless when I was in private practice. Made a constitutional challenge to a council ordinance, and then put all 8 members of the council on and say, what were you thinking about when you passed ordinance XYZ? And then use the minutes to impeach a couple of them and say, well, that's not what you said at the meeting, okay? So the recorded minutes might be used potentially by an enterprising attorney to impeach certain things that each of you undertake to have done. They would come into play in that way, but your official action is still the written minutes upon which you voted. What was the first question you asked? I'm sorry, I got derailed on that.
You're not going to impeach me if I get this wrong, are you?
No, I'm not.
I guess I was wondering if we have. We
you
don't
were
have
asking about could the digital record be essentially official?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so, and let me get back to you on that, but I believe the statute requires written minutes. And I haven't looked specifically at that issue, but I believe the state statute requiring you to have minutes requires them to be in writing. And there are certain specific instances, like the cell tower, where the law requires a written record, not a digital one. So that's maybe not a completely satisfying answer, but it's the best one I have tonight.
I think the fact that there's some satisfaction missing probably highlights the real problem, and that is we're legally ratifying minutes that may or may not completely be in congruence with what actually happened. So I would be in agreement with the fact that maybe really, really condensed minutes when that's expedient and useful, so that when we're agreeing to what actions were actually taken, there's not as much room for error. And then obviously for the more sensitive, like the CUP hearings and things like that, then maybe even taking it up a notch so that if we were to be on the other side of that legal conversation that you were referring to, then there's some very hearty documentation that follows really closely, maybe even word for word with what actually took place verbally in the meeting, so that there's no chance for that to be misconstrued. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Judge.
I guess this would be basically a question for our attorney. If we have recording that could be transcribed, would that not be sufficient, that somebody could go back and transcribe every word that was said off of the video or audio-video presentation to satisfy that requirement?
Yes, but I think the issue with that is the resources to do a word-for-word transcription. Justice Madison, I've been visiting with her about the last 3 weeks or so about what I believe to be the need for a court reporter when you do cell tower appeals, because of a whole raft of laws that have essentially been interpreted over the last 6 months or so. If you do that, I think you either have to have a person who is literally transcribing those meetings, into verbatim minutes, or you need the one of two other things: an actual court reporter, and I think some governing bodies do that. One, or the software that I suspect would be really expensive. I don't know that. That would probably be a question for John. But that would be essentially voice recognition software.
I know we've talked about voice recognition software before, and because there are 15, 18 voices, it would almost be impossible, because that only works if you're used to hearing a certain voice. Just FYI.
Then, having heard that, and I've experienced a lot of frustration personally with voice recognition software, maybe your choice is between basically having a dedicated person to transcribe the minutes and basically be that person's job, or having a court reporter come to meetings.
Well, I've used voice recognition for probably 15 years, and it does a lousy job. Most of them does. Because you can say a word and it puts down something completely different than what you said. So I wouldn't be all in favor of that. I know the technology is improving dramatically, but it's still less than adequate the last time I tried to use it. Thank you.
May I ask a question? If you cut the minutes down and you want to do something more simplified, what exactly would you want picked up? Would it just be the title and the vote? Is that all it would be? Can someone give me that answer? Yes, J.B. Cochran.
The Robert Rule definition for the committee meetings probably would suffice as far as just recording the action and the votes and the action and the votes. That would save us a certain amount. We don't ever approve the committee meetings, and actions in the committee actually are not binding in any way other than just moving the process to the full quorum court. So, question for Attorney Zega, just speaking of the committee meetings themselves, the individual, not the full quorum court, but other committees, is it necessary to have a detailed committee meeting?
Yes, please.
Judge, you anticipated my question. Necessary in terms of legally, no. You need to comply with Robert's rules and the ordinance that embodies that says you have to comply with Robert's rules. The only thing I would say to that is, again, it's really within Robert's rules, your decision what your record should look like, and I can't think of a reason that they need to be, but they're not as robust right now as quorum court minutes. Now, I've not examined the discrepancy that Justice Eva Madison was talking about between, I think it was finance and jail law enforcement.
Right. The Finance Committee was void of a lot of stuff. If it was put to a vote, I would have voted no, because it was very inadequate. I probably covered more of it in my comments than what we did. So,
but within the law, I sound like a bit of a broken record on this, Justice Cochran. But within the law, what your record looks like is largely up to you.
Right. Okay, that's a good answer. Okay, thank you.
Yes, J.P. Madison.
I just want to offer one other issue to throw out there for your consideration. Our minutes are circulated before we ever approve them, and they remain on the web in that form because they're part of our agenda packets. So anybody that wants to see the minutes from uncorrected minutes, they're out there, and I'm not sure how anybody tells what's corrected and what's not corrected. And in addition, when we've had a few corrections that I've tried to make, I'm not sure I ever see how those get actually corrected. I'm concerned that you would have to put together the old minutes plus the minutes from the new meeting with the corrections in it to understand what the corrections were, if that makes sense. So we need some procedural changes in how we do this, because especially when we're adopting this, it is our record. And I remember a discussion during my first year on the court, because Mike Neal was still on the court, and he said, I remember saying this at a budget meeting last year, and somebody said, well, it's not in the minutes. It's not in the minutes, so you didn't say it. And so it does have significance. So I think there's a lot of issues around minutes. But Judge, to answer your question, I don't know that I have the answer, because I think to some extent efficiency is great. We made a motion to pass this and it approved unanimously and it moved on. But looking at like what finance is, finance, this is page 88 of our agenda packet. It's very efficient. Ordinance appropriating an additional amount of blank. B. Pond made a motion to forward with a due pass recommendation. Motion was approved unanimously. There's no indication of any discussion. Then when you get like down to the JDC grant and things like that, where I know we got an explanation, it's not there. So we have to decide what we want. When people come talk to us, do we want their explanations to be in the minutes, or do we want it to just be a motion? Do we want everything we say to be in there? Nothing we say? Because right now, if you look at this, you have no idea what the JAG grant budget is. None. There's no explanation for what it is in here. It just says we move to pass it on. So I don't have the answer to your question, Judge, but
thank you.
I'm
just curious.
I hope we can work it out. But I do think we really need some work in this area.
Any other business before the court? Public comments? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you guys for a long meeting. I appreciate you.